The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a vast dome under the artificial sky of Vex Prime. Hundreds of beings from across the galaxy sat in curved rows, their varied forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Some breathed oxygen like humans, others required special suits filled with methane or hydrogen. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime to convert thousands of languages into something everyone could understand. Dongwu sat quietly in the human section, which looked pitifully small compared to the massive delegations of other species. As the representative of the Terran Federation, he had attended these meetings for 5 years. In all that time, humanity had been treated like the poor cousin at a family dinner, tolerated, but not respected. The Nexari delegation sparkled in their crystal armor, their technology so advanced it seemed like magic. The Korthak warriors stood tall and proud, their battle scars visible even through their formal robes. The Zephyrians floated slightly above their seats, their minds touching everything around them with invisible psychic fingers. Then there were the humans, sitting in simple chairs wearing basic uniforms looking exactly like what they were, the weakest species in the galactic community. Chancellor Veltar of the Hegemony rose from the central platform. His species looked like walking trees, all bark and branches, but his voice carried the authority of someone who had ruled the galaxy for centuries. We gathered today to address a problem that has concerned this council for too long. Dongwu felt his stomach drop. He knew what was coming. The human species has been a member of our community for 57 years, Veltar continued. In that time, they have contributed little to our common defense. Their ships are old and slow. Their weapons are primitive. Their military thinking is outdated by at least 200 years. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the hall. Dongwu had heard these criticisms before, but never so openly in the full council. We face real threats in this galaxy, said Commander Zekhai of the Nexari, his crystalline form catching the light as he stood. The void pirates grow bolder each cycle. Unknown signals come from the dark regions beyond our borders. We need every species to pull their weight. The Korthak war chief Rathmol slammed his massive fist on his desk. The humans hide behind our strength while contributing nothing. Their largest ships are smaller than our scouts. Their crews know nothing of real battle. More voices joined in. Species after species stood to list humanity's military failures. Their ships were too few. Their technology was centuries behind. Their tactics were laughable. They had never won a single engagement against pirates or raiders. Dongwu listened to it all with a calm face, though inside he felt a mixture of amusement and sadness. If only they knew the truth. Finally, Chancellor Veltar raised a branch-like arm for silence. Therefore, this council has reached a decision. The human species has 72 standard hours to demonstrate their military worth. They must show us a fleet capable of meaningful contribution to galactic defense. The hall fell silent. Even the translation devices seemed to pause. If they cannot do this, Veltar continued, and they will be expelled from the council. All trade agreements will be terminated. All protection treaties will be void. They will be alone in the galaxy. Dongwu stood slowly. His simple human form looked tiny next to the alien giants around him. I understand the council's decision, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the vast hall. I will relay this message to my government immediately. You have 72 hours, Veltar repeated. Show us your best fleet or face the consequences. As the council session ended, aliens filed out in groups, talking excitedly about finally getting rid of the human deadweight. Some placed bets on how quickly humanity would collapse without galactic protection. Others discussed dividing up human territories after the inevitable expulsion. Dongwu remained in his seat as the hall emptied, sending a quantum message to Earth. The reply came back within minutes. Just 2 words from President Kaite. Message received. On the flagship of the Nexari observation fleet, Admiral Zekhai studied the data streams coming from human space. Their energy signatures are increasing, reported his science officer. Multiple ships are moving in the outer system. How many? Zekhai asked. Difficult to say. Perhaps a dozen of their larger vessels. Zekhai laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. A dozen ships? That is their great fleet. We have individual vessels more powerful than their entire navy. Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. The Korthak military command was already making plans to claim the best human worlds. The Zephyrian Council was deciding which human colonies would make good research stations. None of them were paying attention to the strange energy readings coming from the dark spaces beyond human territory. If they had looked closer, they might have noticed that the signals were not random. They were systematic, methodical, like something very large was waking up after a long sleep. On Earth, Admiral HFY stood in the war room deep beneath the capital city. Around her, screens showed star maps of human space and beyond. Officers moved quickly between stations, coordinating what would be the largest military operation in human history. "Status report," she ordered. "Mothball yards 1 through 57 are online," reported Colonel Tae-hyun. "Reactors are warming up according to schedule. We should have full power in 18 hours. Fleet coordination? Admiral Jinwoo reports ready to assume command of all awakened units," said Captain Yoo-jin. "The old crews are coming out of stasis now. Most remember their ships like they were parked yesterday." HFY nodded. The veterans of humanity's darker days had volunteered to remain in suspended animation, ready to crew their ships if they were ever needed again. Today they were needed. "What about the observers?" "They think we are preparing our regular patrol fleet," laughed Commander Nauri. "Our escorts have them completely fooled. They expect to see maybe 20 ships total." "Good. Let them keep thinking that." HFY looked at the main display, which showed the positions of over 3,000 vessels, ships that had been sleeping in the darkness for 2 centuries waiting for this moment. "Admiral," said the communications officer, "we are receiving requests from 17 different species. They want to observe the demonstration." "Of course they do. They want to watch us fail." HFY smiled grimly. "Tell them they are welcome to watch. In fact, invite as many as possible. This is going to be educational. In 60 hours, the galaxy would learn why humanity had never seemed worried about being the weakest species in the Council. They were about to discover that there was a difference between being weak and appearing weak. The demonstration was going to be very educational indeed. Captain Tae-hyun had seen many strange things in his 20 years of military service, but nothing quite like this. He floated in his environmental suit outside Mothball Yard 17, watching as lights began to flicker on across a structure the size of a small moon. The yard had been dark for over 200 years, hidden in the asteroid field beyond Pluto where no alien scout had ever ventured. "Reactor status?" He spoke into his communicator. "Main fusion plant is at 30% and climbing," came the reply from Chief Engineer Yoo-jin. "All systems are green." The automated maintenance worked perfectly. These ships are in better condition than the day they were stored. Tae-hyun shook his head in amazement. The ship emerging from its protective cocoon was the battleship Thunder Mountain, a vessel so large that its main guns were bigger than most alien destroyers. When it had been built during the Sol Wars, it was designed to fight enemies that humanity never actually encountered. The threat had passed, the wars had ended, and ships like this had been deemed unnecessary. But humanity never threw anything away that might be useful later. "How many yards are coming online?" Tae-hyun asked. "All 57, sir. We have confirmation from every facility from here to the edge of the system. The outer ring yards are the largest. Some of those ships haven't moved in 3 centuries. Tae-hyun activated his suit's thrusters and moved closer to the Thunder Mountain. Through its transparent aluminum viewports, he could see lights coming on throughout the massive vessel. Crew quarters, weapons bays, fighter hangars, all preparing to receive the veterans who would bring this sleeping giant back to life. In Mothball Yard 3, Colonel So-young was overseeing the awakening of something even more impressive. The carrier New Horizon was emerging from its preservation shell like a butterfly from a cocoon. At 4 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide, it could house over 200 fighter craft and carry a crew of 50,000. "Ma'am, the flight deck is pressurizing," reported Lieutenant Minho. "Hangar bays 1 through 40 are showing green. The fabrication plants are already producing fresh fighters from stored patterns." So-young smiled. The aliens thought human technology was primitive because they had only seen humanity's patrol vessels, small, efficient ships designed for everyday use. They had never seen what humans built when they were genuinely afraid. "What about the crew?" "Stasis pods are opening throughout the fleet. Admiral Jinwoo reports that 93% of stored personnel are reviving successfully. The remainder are being replaced by volunteers from active duty." In another part of the yard, the massive form of the dreadnought Unstoppable Force was stretching its mechanical limbs for the first time in centuries. Its armor plating was 3 meters thick in places, designed to withstand direct hits from weapons that could crack planets. Its main battery consisted of guns so powerful that firing them created artificial earthquakes on nearby asteroids. Commander Hyun-woo was conducting the final systems check when his scanner operator called out in amazement. "Sir, I'm reading energy signatures from Yard 51 that are off the charts. What do they have over there?" Hyun-woo checked his command display and felt his own amazement growing. "That would be the final answer, son. Planet Killer class. We only built 3 of them and we prayed we would never need to use them." Planet Killer? A ship designed to end solar systems. Its main weapon can destabilize stars. Hyun-woo looked at the readings with mixed emotions. Humanity built some terrible things when we thought we might face extinction. Today we find out if that preparation was worth it. Meanwhile, on the observation platform of the Nexari research vessel Crystal Dream, Science Officer Velnari was trying to make sense of the energy readings coming from human space. "Admiral Zekai, the power signatures are unlike anything in our databases." "How so?" "They are enormous, sir. And there are thousands of them. Whatever the humans are doing, it involves far more ships than we thought they possessed." Admiral Zekai waved a dismissive crystalline hand. "Impossible. We have detailed intelligence on human fleet strength. They have perhaps 200 vessels total, most of them obsolete. With respect, sir, I am reading energy signatures from over 3,000 separate sources, and they are all military-grade fusion plants." For the first time, Zekai felt a flicker of doubt. "Are you certain of these readings?" "Yes, sir, and they are getting stronger." Similar conversations were happening throughout the galaxy. Korthak intelligence was reporting impossible ship movements in human space. Zephyrian psychics were detecting vast numbers of awakening minds that had been dormant for centuries. Even the pirates were pulling back from human borders, sensing that something fundamental was changing. Back in the mothball yards, Admiral Jin-woo was taking command of the largest fleet ever assembled by any single species. Standing on the bridge of the super dreadnought Eternal Vigilance, he watched as ship after ship reported ready for action. "Fleet status?" he asked his aide, Captain Yoonji. "All yards report successful activation. We have available for deployment 47 planet killers, 231 super dreadnoughts, 843 heavy carriers, 1,500 battle cruisers, and approximately 4,000 support vessels." Jinwoo nodded calmly, though inside he felt the weight of commanding such destructive power. "Total crew complement?" "Just over 8 million, sir. The veterans are performing excellently. Most crews report full combat readiness." "And our observers?" "Still monitoring what they think is our regular fleet. They have no idea what is about to emerge from the yards." Jinwoo looked at the tactical display showing the positions of alien observation vessels. They were positioned to watch what they expected to be humanity's pathetic military demonstration. Instead, they were about to witness the emergence of a fleet that could conquer half the galaxy. "Time to demonstration?"
18 hours, sir. Very well.
"Signal all vessels. We move to the Kepler Nebula in 12 hours. It is time to show the galaxy what human engineering looks like when we are properly motivated." As the fleet prepared to move, automated systems throughout the mothball yards began shutting down non-essential systems. The great work was nearly complete. Ships that had slept for centuries were flexing their muscles, testing weapons that could turn worlds to glass and shields that could absorb the fury of stars. In the command center on Earth, President Kite watched the final preparations with mixed emotions. "Are we doing the right thing, Admiral Haewon?" "They demanded to see our strength, sir. We are simply complying with their request. They are going to be terrified of us after this. Perhaps, but they will also respect us. And sometimes respect and fear are close enough to keep the peace." Kitai nodded, understanding the terrible logic. Humanity had built these weapons hoping never to use them. But if showing them prevented wars, then perhaps their construction had been justified after all. The galaxy was about to learn that the human definition of obsolete was very different from everyone else's. The Kepler Nebula glowed with swirling clouds of gas and ancient starlight, its beauty hiding the graveyard of a dozen civilizations that had fought and died among its colorful mists. It was the perfect place for a demonstration, far from inhabited worlds but close enough for the galaxy's observers to witness whatever humanity was about to attempt. Commander Nari stood on the bridge of the human escort vessel, steady hand, watching as alien observation fleets took their positions throughout the nebula. The sight was impressive, crystal ships of the Nixari, massive war barges of the Korthak, sleek research vessels from a dozen other species. Representatives from 43 different civilizations had come to watch humanity's military demonstration. They certainly turned out in force, observed Lieutenant J. Min from the navigation station. Can you blame them? Nari replied with a smile. They think they are about to watch the galaxy's weakest species embarrass themselves. This is probably the most entertainment they have had in years. The human escort squadron consisted of 12 vessels, each one looking exactly like what the aliens expected: small, outdated, and utterly insignificant compared to the massive alien warships surrounding them. The largest human ship present was barely 300 meters long, while some of the Korthak observers stretched over 2 kilometers. On the Nixari command ship Crystal Harmony, Admiral Zekai was reviewing the tactical display with barely concealed amusement. 12 ships, he said to his staff. This is what humanity calls a fleet demonstration. I have seen pirates with more impressive formations. Perhaps they have more ships coming, suggested his tactical officer. Where? Our sensors have been monitoring human space for days. We have accounted for every vessel in their navy. This is it. Similar conversations were happening throughout the observer fleets. The consensus was clear. Humanity was about to reveal just how pathetically weak they really were, and then the galaxy could finally be rid of their dead weight. On the bridge of the Steady Hand, Nari received a communication from Admiral Jinwoo. Scout Force, this is Fleet Command. Are our guests in position? Yes, sir. All observer fleets are at designated coordinates. They have a clear view of the target zone. Excellent. Begin preliminary bombardment in 60 seconds. Nari smiled and opened a channel to all observer vessels. Attention, galactic observers. Thank you for accepting our invitation to witness this demonstration of human military capability. We will begin with a preliminary engagement to test our targeting systems. The human escort squadron moved into formation around the target, a dead world on the nebula's edge that had been blasted clean of atmosphere by some ancient war. It was a lifeless rock about the size of Earth's moon, perfect for weapons testing. Weapons free, Nari ordered. The 12 human ships opened fire simultaneously. Their weapons were nothing special by galactic standards, basic plasma cannons and kinetic projectiles that most species had abandoned centuries ago. The bombardment lasted 30 seconds and left a few small craters on the target world's surface. Throughout the observer fleets, beings shook their heads in disappointment. This was even worse than they had expected, is that it? Asked Commander Rathmole of the Korthak. My personal sidearm is more powerful than those weapons. Pathetic, agreed a Zephyrian observer. We could have stayed home, but then something changed on the sensor displays. Energy readings that had been normal suddenly spiked to impossible levels. Space itself seemed to shimmer as massive gravitational distortions appeared throughout the nebula. What is happening? Demanded Admiral Zekai. His science officer stared at his instruments in disbelief. Sir, I am detecting massive hyperspace exits. Thousands of them. The energy signatures are... He never finished the sentence. The Kepler Nebula erupted in artificial daylight as the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Ships emerged from the swirling void like ancient gods awakening from sleep. Dreadnoughts the size of cities, their hulls bristling with weapons that could crack moons. Carriers so vast they created their own gravity wells, launching clouds of fighters that darkened the space around them, battle stations that dwarfed some asteroids. Their armor plating gleaming with the promise of violence. The observer fleets, which had seemed so impressive moments before, were suddenly revealed as tiny insects floating near sleeping giants. By the ancient stars, whispered Admiral Zekai, his crystalline form flickering with shock. How many ships are there? Over 3,000, sir, and they are still coming. Admiral Jinwoo stood on the bridge of the super dreadnought Eternal Vigilance, watching as his fleet settled into formation around the target world. Each ship took its assigned position with military precision, creating a sphere of destruction that encompassed the entire dead planet. Fleet status? He asked Captain Yunji. All vessels report ready for action, sir. Weapons are charged and targeting systems are locked on. Jinwoo opened a communication channel to all observer fleets. Galactic observers, this is Admiral Jinwoo of the Terran Federation Fleet. You requested a demonstration of human military capability. We are pleased to comply. Please observe the following display. He nodded to his weapons officer. Commence demonstration. What followed was not a battle, it was an execution. The human fleet opened fire with coordinated precision that spoke of centuries of military doctrine and planning. Planet-killer weapons discharged energy beams that sliced through the target world's crust like a hot knife through butter. Kinetic projectiles traveling at significant fractions of light speed punched craters the size of continents. Plasma torpedoes detonated with the force of small stars, turning portions of the planet's surface into molten glass. The bombardment lasted exactly 37 minutes. When it ended, the target world was gone. Not damaged, not cracked, but completely vaporized into a cloud of glowing particles that would take millennia to cool. The silence that followed was absolute. Across 43 observer fleets, beings stared at their sensor readings in stunned disbelief. Some thought their instruments had malfunctioned. Others wondered if they were experiencing some kind of shared hallucination. Did they just, began the Korthak commander. Destroy an entire planet, finished his aide. In 37 minutes, how is this possible? Demanded a Zephyrian observer. Our intelligence indicated that humans possessed perhaps 200 ships total. Apparently, said Admiral Zekhai slowly, our intelligence was somewhat inaccurate. On the Eternal Vigilance, Admiral Jinwu was receiving status reports from his fleet commanders. All weapons functioned within acceptable parameters, reported Captain Minho from the carrier New Horizon. No system failures, no targeting errors. The fleet performed exactly as designed. Excellent. Signal all vessels. Return to standard formation. The demonstration is complete. As the massive human fleet began to withdraw, Jinwu opened one final communication to the observers. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. This concludes our demonstration of current human military capabilities. We trust this display adequately addresses the Galactic Council's concerns about our defensive contributions. He paused, allowing the implications to sink in throughout the galaxy. We look forward to continued peaceful cooperation with all species. Admiral Jin Wu out. As the human fleet disappeared back into hyperspace, leaving only empty space where a world had once existed, the observer fleets remained frozen in shock. In less than 40 minutes, humanity had revealed that they possessed more firepower than the rest of the galaxy combined. The weakest species in the galactic community had just demonstrated that they could destroy civilizations with casual efficiency. The galaxy would never be the same. The first transmission arrived at Earth exactly 14 seconds after the human fleet disappeared from the Kepler Nebula. It came from the Nexari High Command, and it was marked with the highest priority codes their civilization possessed. This is Admiral Zekhai of the Nexari Crystal Fleet, the message began, and even through the translation software, the panic in his voice was clear. We urgently request immediate diplomatic consultation with the Terran Federation regarding mutual defense agreements and technological cooperation treaties. It was followed by another message 30 seconds later, this one from the Korthak War Council. Then the Zephyrian mind link. Then species after species, each one desperate to speak with humanity about partnerships, trade agreements, and military alliances. Ambassador So Young sat in her office in the Earth capital, watching the communications board light up like a festival display. In her 20 years as humanity's chief diplomat, she had never seen anything like this. Species that had barely acknowledged human existence were now begging for audiences. Ma'am, said her aide, Captain Seung-ho, we have received 47 formal requests for emergency diplomatic meetings in the last hour. The Galactic Council has called an immediate session, and Chancellor Veltar personally requests your presence. So Young smiled calmly. How interesting. Just yesterday they wanted to throw us out of the galaxy. Schedule meetings with everyone who asks, but make it clear that we are very busy. They can wait their turn. Meanwhile, in the war rooms of every major civilization, military commanders were frantically trying to understand what they had just witnessed. The implications were staggering and terrifying. On the Nexari homeworld of Kristalla, Supreme Admiral Kextai was reviewing the battle analysis with his senior staff. The holographic display showed the human fleet in all its impossible glory. Thousands of ships, each one larger and more powerful than anything in the Nexari Navy. Our largest dreadnought masses 800,000 tons, said Fleet Commander Yexhai. I counted at least 50 human vessels that appear to be over 10 million tons each. How did we not know about this? Because we were not looking, admitted Intelligence Chief Nexhari. We assumed human technology was primitive because their patrol vessels use old designs. We never considered that they might have newer ships in reserve. Newer? Kexte laughed bitterly. Those ships destroyed a planet in 37 minutes. Our entire battle fleet could not accomplish that in 37 days. The same conversations were happening throughout the galaxy. On the Korthak homeworld, War Chief Rathamal was studying tactical recordings with growing amazement and fear. Play the section where they target the northern continent again, he ordered. The hologram showed human warships positioning themselves with mathematical precision around the doomed world. When they fired, their weapons functioned with terrifying efficiency. No wasted shots, no missed targets, just methodical destruction delivered with industrial precision. They fight like machines, observed Sub-Chief Kexmal. No passion, no rage, just cold calculation. How do you defeat an enemy like that? You do not, Rathmul replied quietly. You pray they remain peaceful. On Earth, President Kite was meeting with his military advisors to discuss the flood of diplomatic requests. Admiral Haywan presented the intelligence reports with barely concealed amusement. The Nexari are offering us access to their crystal technology in exchange for mutual defense treaties, she reported. The Korthak want to send military exchange students to learn our tactical doctrines. The Zephyrians are offering psychic communication networks. Everyone wants to be our friend. What about the pirates and raiders? Asked President Kite. Activity has dropped to almost zero. It seems word travels fast in criminal circles. No one wants to risk triggering a response from the fleet that destroyed a planet. Commander Haiyan Wu, head of intelligence, added his own observations. We are receiving interesting intelligence from our monitoring stations. Several hostile species beyond our borders have canceled planned raids on galactic colonies. The demonstration appears to have had an effect far beyond our intended audience. President Kite nodded thoughtfully. And our own people? How are they reacting? With pride mostly, said Admiral Haywan. Though some are concerned about becoming a military superpower. They prefer our old role as the galaxy's peaceful farmers and traders. Understandable. Make it clear to all personnel that this changes nothing about our core values. We are still the same humans we were yesterday. We simply have better insurance now. Back at the Galactic Council, Chancellor Veltar was dealing with the most chaotic session in the organization's 1,000-year history. Representatives from dozens of species were demanding explanations, investigations, and immediate policy changes. How could our intelligence have been so wrong? Demanded the Altarian delegate. We based our military planning on the assumption that humans were weak. The question, said the Centaurian ambassador, is what else might we be wrong about? If humans can hide a fleet of that size, what other surprises might be waiting in the galaxy? Veltar raised his branch-like arms for silence. The immediate question is how we respond to this revelation. Clearly, humanity is not the weak species we believed them to be. Weak? The Vegan representative's tentacles writhed with nervous energy. They could conquer half the galaxy with that fleet. We need to consider them a potential threat to galactic stability. Or, suggested the wise old Andromedan elder, we could consider them the solution to galactic instability. When was the last time anyone worried about the Void Pirates? I notice they have been very quiet since the demonstration. Ambassador, So Young finally arrived at the council chambers 6 hours after being summoned. A deliberate delay that sent its own message about humanity's new status. When she took her seat, the entire assembly fell silent. Ambassador So Young, Chancellor Veltar began carefully. The council has many questions about your recent military demonstration. I am happy to answer them, So Young replied calmly. Though I should point out that you specifically requested a demonstration of human military capability. We simply complied with the council's requirements, but the scale of your response was unexpected, So Young smiled. You asked us to prove our military worth. We showed you a small portion of our defensive capabilities. I hope this resolves any concerns about humanity's ability to contribute to galactic security. Small portion? The Korthak representative's voice cracked slightly. Of course. The council requested a demonstration, not a full mobilization. We used less than 10% of our available forces. The silence that followed this statement lasted for nearly a full minute. Representatives looked at each other with growing alarm as they processed the implications. If what they had seen was only 10% of human capability, Ambassador, Veltar said slowly, perhaps we should discuss new arrangements for humanity's role in galactic defense. I think that would be wise, So Young agreed. Though I should mention that humanity has no interest in territorial expansion or military conquest. We are quite happy with our current borders and our peaceful way of life. Of course, Veltar assured her quickly. No one is suggesting otherwise. Excellent. Then I believe we can work together to ensure galactic peace and stability. After all, that has always been humanity's goal. As the session continued, the new reality of galactic politics began to emerge. Humanity had revealed itself as the dominant military force in known space, but they seemed genuinely uninterested in using that power for conquest. They wanted the same things they had always wanted: peaceful trade, scientific cooperation, and protection from external threats. The difference was that now everyone else wanted those things too. Very badly. By the end of the day, humanity had received invitations to join 17 different military alliances, offers to purchase their older ships from 23 different species, and requests for protection from virtually every peaceful civilization in the galaxy. The weakest species in galactic history had become its guardian almost overnight. 6 months after the demonstration at Kepler Nebula, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Trade routes that had been plagued by pirates for centuries now operated with perfect safety. Wars that had simmered for decades suddenly ended in negotiated settlements. Species that had never spoken to each other were working together on cooperative projects. The reason was simple. Nobody wanted to risk making the humans angry. Admiral J. Mean stood on the observation deck of the orbital defense station above Earth, watching as a convoy of alien ships approached the planet. Today's arrivals included Nexari crystal haulers, Korthak cultural exchange vessels, and a massive Zephyrian research ship. All of them flew under the protection of human escort vessels, a service that had become so routine that Earth traffic control barely noted it anymore. Strange how things change, observed Commander Yunji, joining him at the viewport. A year ago, we were lucky if one alien ship visited Earth per month. Now we have dozens arriving daily. Everyone wants to be close to the humans now, Jamien replied. Can you blame them? We are the safest species in the galaxy to trade with. It was true. Pirates who had operated with impunity for generations had simply vanished from space lanes under human protection. The few foolish enough to attack human-escorted convoys had been dealt with so quickly and efficiently that piracy was becoming extinct as a profession. On the surface of Earth, the new Galactic Military Academy was training its first class of alien cadets. Colonel Minho watched as Korthak warriors practiced human tactical formations, alongside Nexari technicians and Zephyrian strategists. The sight would have been impossible just months before. How are they adapting to our teaching methods? Asked Captain Tae-hyun, the Academy's human liaison. Better than expected, Minho replied. The Korthak especially. They are fascinated by our emphasis on preparation and overwhelming force. Their traditional approach is all about individual heroics in battle. And the others? The Nexari love our engineering principles. They are already incorporating human design concepts into their crystal ships. The Zephyrians find our logistics fascinating. They never considered how much planning goes into moving and supplying large fleets. In the Academy classrooms, alien students were learning lessons that challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare. Professor Yujin was explaining human military philosophy to a mixed class of aliens who hung on her every word. The key principle, she said, is that the best battle is the one you never have to fight. When potential enemies know you can destroy them completely, they tend to choose negotiation instead of violence. A young Korthak officer raised his hand. But Professor, does this not remove the honor from combat? Yujin smiled. Tell me, Cadet Morkan, is there honor in unnecessary death? Is there honor in destroying civilizations that could have been saved through deterrence? The classroom fell silent as the students considered this. For warrior species like the Korthak, the concept of victory without battle was revolutionary. Meanwhile, in the halls of the Galactic Council, humanity's new role was becoming more defined with each passing day. Ambassador So Young now chaired the Defense Committee, a position that had been created specifically for her. The irony was not lost on anyone. The species that had been threatened with expulsion for military weakness now oversaw galactic security. The situation in the Outer Rim has stabilized, she reported to the full council. The three warring factions have agreed to human mediation of their territorial disputes. Chancellor Veltar nodded approvingly. And the reports of unknown signals from the void regions? Our long-range reconnaissance fleets are investigating. If there are external threats, we will be ready for them. The casual way she said this sent a chill through many representatives. They had all seen what human readiness looked like. In the depths of space, the human mothball yards had returned to their eternal slumber. Admiral Jinwoo made periodic visits to ensure the ancient fleet remained ready for action, but he hoped they would never be needed again. The Eternal Vigilance and her sister ships rested in the darkness. Their crews returned to stasis, their weapons cold but always ready. Status report, he asked Captain Xiang-ho during one such inspection. All systems remain in perfect condition, sir. The automated maintenance systems are functioning normally. If needed, we could have the full fleet operational in 18 hours. Let us hope it never comes to that. Jinwoo looked out at the sleeping giants and felt the weight of the responsibility they represented. These ships had ended the galaxy's fear of humanity, but they had also made humanity responsible for the galaxy's safety. It was a burden he carried with quiet dignity. On Earth, President Kite was meeting with representatives from the newly formed Galactic Protection Alliance, a collection of peaceful species who had formerly requested human military protection. The agreement was simple. They would continue their scientific and cultural development while humanity provided security against external threats. The arrangement is working well, reported Ambassador Dongwu. Member species are thriving without the constant fear of attack. Trade is up 400% across protected sectors. Scientific cooperation has reached unprecedented levels. Any problems? Some species worry about becoming too dependent on human protection. They fear losing their independence, Kite nodded understanding. Understandable concerns. Make it clear that we have no interest in governing anyone except ourselves. We are security guards, not rulers. The truth was that humanity had achieved something unique in galactic history. They had become the dominant military power without becoming an empire. They protected others without conquering them, influenced events without controlling them. In the outer regions of human space, Captain Nari was conducting a routine patrol when her sensors detected something unusual. A small fleet of unknown vessels was approaching from the void between galaxies, exactly the kind of external threat that had always worried human planners. Analysis? She asked her science officer. Unknown configuration, sir. Technology appears advanced but unfamiliar. They are not broadcasting any recognition signals. Nari made the decision that would define humanity's role for generations to come. Signal Admiral Heiwan. Tell her we may have visitors. And activate the early warning beacons. If these are hostile, the galaxy needs to know. Within hours, the message had reached every corner of known space. Unknown vessels were approaching from outside the galaxy. The species that had once mocked human preparedness now looked to Earth with desperate hope. The humans had spent centuries preparing for exactly this moment. As the alien vessels continued their approach, Admiral Heiwan stood in the war room beneath Earth's capital, watching as defensive systems across human space began their familiar awakening. The mothball yard stirred once more. Veteran crews emerged from stasis. Ancient weapons charged their capacitors. Fleet status? She asked. All defense fleets are moving to intercept positions, reported Admiral Jinwoo from the Eternal Vigilance. We should have visual contact with the unknown vessels in 6 hours. Rules of engagement? Standard protocol. We protect the galaxy. Whatever these visitors want, they will have to go through us to get it. As the human fleet moved to intercept the unknown threat, representatives from dozens of species watched the tactical displays with mixture of fear and gratitude. They were about to discover whether humanity's protective promises were as reliable as their destructive demonstrations. Young Cadet Haiyan Wu, recently graduated from the Galactic Military Academy, stood on the bridge of his first assignment and watched humanity's fleet deploy with textbook precision. He was Korthak by birth but human by training, one of the first generation to bridge the gap between species. Magnificent, he whispered to himself. This is what real strength looks like. As the unknown fleet drew closer, the galaxy held its breath and waited to see if their guardians were ready for the ultimate test. Humanity had spent 3 centuries preparing for this moment. Today they would learn if their preparation had been sufficient.